Hello, welcome to the first episode of this year's Com Radio NFL Draft Show. I'm your host, Jack Molesky. For the next 6 weeks, we will be keeping you up to date with the latest NFL draft news. Along the way, we'll break down this year's draft. From top prospects to hidden gems, from pro day recaps to positional breakdowns, you can catch anything and everything you need to know about this year's draft right here. Now let's kick things off with the opening drive. The New York Jets made this year's first big move, trading with the Indianapolis Colts to acquire the number 3 pick in the NFL Draft. The Jets gave up this year's 6th overall pick along with 2 second-round picks, numbers 37 and 49 overall. In addition, the Colts will get a second-round pick in 2019. New York is still in search for their quarterback of the future, and this trade gives them an opportunity at either Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, or Josh Allen. The Patriots acquired Cordarrelle Patterson for the Oakland Raiders. Patterson, who is a wide receiver and return specialist, was acquired for a 5th-round pick. In addition to Patterson, the Patriots also received a 6th-round pick from Oakland. The Minnesota Vikings and Cleveland Browns have made the biggest splashes during this year's free agency period. Cleveland continues to build its offense, adding Jarvis Landry, Carlos Hyde, and Tyrod Taylor in the past few weeks. The Vikings acquired prize free agent target Kirk Cousins in the largest guaranteed deal in NFL history. In addition, Minnesota also added Sheldon Richardson to bolster an already superb defense. In NFL draft news, reports out of Cleveland have said that despite the team's acquisition of Carlos Hyde, Penn State running back Saquon Barkley is still in the mix for the number 1 pick in this year's draft. After an impressive combine performance, Barkley seems to have cemented himself as a top 5 pick at the very least. The Browns hold picks number 1 and 4 in this year's draft. That's the latest from across the league, and now we welcome David Arroyo and Zach Kaplan as we start our conference previews during this show. We'll preview a Power 5 conference per week, and we start off with the ACC. Arguably the 2 best players in the draft, Bradley Chubb and Derwin James of the ACC. But who's number 3 in the ACC, David? Who's the 3rd best player in this year's draft?
I think the 3rd best player is actually Lamar Jackson out of the ACC, quarterback who really isn't getting the credit he deserves at the quarterback position despite playing in a very complicated Petrino offense while he was at Louisville. I think he's a quarterback who could end up being the best quarterback in this draft thanks to his athletic abilities, can play a couple different positions, and because of that, I think he's probably the 3rd best player in the ACC.
I got to disagree with you there, David. I'm going to go with Harold Landry. He's kind of a linebacker, defensive end hybrid out of Boston College. He kept that defense. He was the key cog of that defense, and he kept the Eagles in a lot of games this year in the ACC. So I like Landry. He seems like he's going to be a bona fide first-round pick.
The ACC, a pretty strong conference overall in this year's draft. 6 players projected to go in the first round in the top 32. David, are you buying that over or under 6 players for the ACC?
I think it's going to be right around 6. I'm going to take the over. I think they're probably going to have more than that just because you look at it and they have some good offensive talent that has the potential to find their way into the first round. I think currently we probably have a little bit high of a projection on the number of defensive players that go in the first round. So I think because of that, the ACC gets a couple more players.
And I agree with Dave that it's going to be very close to 6, but I think it's going to be slightly under. I'm going with right around 5. I know a lot of key mock drafts out there. Walter Football, Todd McShay, they both have 5 ACC players going in that first round, so I'm going to stick with that.
Obviously, the draft more than just the first round. It's a best of 7 rounds for some of these teams. So out of the ACC teams, who do you think has the best draft this year, David?
I think it's got to be Clemson. Clemson still has a lot of players that played on that national championship team that are now coming out in this draft. And, you know, it's guys all over the field. You got some solid wideouts, some solid D linemen, some solid O linemen. And then because of that, I think Clemson probably has the best draft class.
And I'm going to go with Louisville with Jair Alexander and Lamar Jackson, both projected to be first-round picks. A little bit top-heavier of the Cardinals, but I think they're going to have a really good draft this year.
This is the time of year where someone is either overvalued or undervalued. Rarely do people feel fairly valued right now around the NFL draft. David, we'll start with you. Who's someone overvalued out of the ACC?
Well, Zach, I'm going to take your guy from earlier. I think Harold Landry is a bit overvalued right now. He really only has one move coming off the edge, and that's coming inside. He's a bit of a speed guy. I think at the next level, he's going to have to develop more moves, and until I see that, I think he's a bit overvalued.
And for me, it's Micah Kiser, a defensive back out of Virginia. I think he played pretty well against some inferior competition in the ACC, but when they had to play some of the better teams, the Virginia Techs and the Clemsons of the conference, he kind of faded a little bit, wasn't at his best, and was easily beatable in some of those games.
And so now we'll flip the script and maybe look at someone who's not getting as much credit as they deserve. And David, I think you mentioned him already, but Lamar Jackson simply isn't getting enough credit in your mind?
I think Lamar Jackson's not getting enough credit solely because people are talking about him like he's a wide receiver, when in reality, he played the quarterback position well in college, and if you play it that well, he won a Heisman, yet we're still talking about him moving positions just because he's fast. I think Lamar Jackson proved he can play the quarterback position and deserves that shot.
And to me, it's Tavares McFadden. He's undervalued. A guy out of Florida State. Keep your eyes on him. This is a guy who played up to the competition a little bit, and I think he could be a good NFL defensive back if given the opportunity.
Well, the Lamar Jackson fan club to my left, I think I already know the answer to this one, David, but we'll start with you anyway. Is Lamar Jackson a first-round pick, and then do you believe, is he boom or bust?
I think he's definitely a first-round pick just because there's a lot of teams that need quarterbacks, so even if he wasn't in past drafts a first-round pick, I think he's definitely a first-round pick. But I also do think he's boom or bust. I think he's either going to be really good because of the intangibles he has, or he just won't get a shot. The thing that he has going into his advantage, though, they've talked about him maybe playing wide receiver. I think if he is a bust at quarterback, he has the opportunity to move positions and be great somewhere else.
And I agree with Dave on both categories there. It's a yes and a yes from me. I think a team will take a flyer on him in the first round. And like Dave said, if he can't play well at the quarterback position, he's probably going to get moved to another position. We've seen that done with Terrell Pryor and other players that have skill at the skill positions, but just can't get it done at quarterback. So maybe see him with a position change there.
Well, thank you guys for the analysis, and stick right here. When we come back, I'll be joined by Zach and David once again. We'll be breaking down the defensive side of the ball in this year's NFL Draft. Stay tuned for more coverage in Com Radio's first episode of the NFL Draft Show.